Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies charts seem to be following a recurring pattern. Now, we can't really predict day to day, even month to month, but there is a recurring pattern that, let me just make it look really simple and childish. You have a boring phase, then we take off, have our parabolic move, comes down, and settles into a new boring phase at a higher level than the previous. This has happened several times in Bitcoin, happened twice last year in Stellar. So where are we now? Where are we? I'm gonna my thesis here. I'm gonna tell you that I think we're around here. I'm gonna talk to you why. I mean, this. First, let's go through the history here, just so you can see what I'm talking about. This was the previous Bitcoin, but oh shoot, I just messed up my chart. Sorry. Let's see if I can fix that. Doesn't look as pretty as the last one. No, it's okay. Okay, so anyways, it was down, 100-ish, below 100 for its boring phase, and then it went parabolic, went to 1,000. Now, keep in mind, I'm sorry, one other thing I researched. I was like, well, how do you know you're out of the boring phase? Is there any sign? There, I found that with a couple of the Bitcoin booms that I looked at, with the Stellar ones I looked at, you're in the boring phase, and then all of a sudden there's one day where it jumps by about 50% on high volume, and then it comes right back down 25 to 30% the next couple days. 7 days later is generally the best time to buy, and that sort of rings the bell that we're beginning. So, in other words, you're plodding along, and then you all of a sudden have one day. If I zero in on this, you know what? I don't want to get too crazy on that, but the bottom line is here, it went from 100 to 1,000, came all the way back, and the boring phase was around 250, 275, I was thinking, seemed like it. Let's see where we go here. You can see that, and then so this is where it ended, right here. And then it started, and then guess what? The fun began. So, so that was Bitcoin, and now, and then again, it happened again, right? We look at this now. One of the things, just to show you, you have to use a chart like this. This is CoinMarketCap.com, great website for this. Here's the previous boom we were just looking at. Like, you can't even see it over here, right? It just looks like nothing. Looks pretty boring because of the scale issue. So you need to use a chart like this where you can adjust the scale. So now, here we are. Okay, so we had our boring phase, and we went up to, a huge high here, 20,000. Well, where are we now? Well, this is where it gets tricky. Now, clearly, we know we're not. So if we go here, we know we're not here in Bitcoin, right? That we know. But, there's a big difference between here and here. And the only thing I'll tell you is that any rule of thumb is that 60% off the highs is not a bad time to start thinking, okay, we're heading into the boring period. Now, let me show you one other thing, too, which is that, in crypto, nothing is ever boring. Let me go back to this one here. Let's look at the boring period a little bit, if I may. Okay, so if we're calling, let's say from here to here is the boring period, right? If I got rid of this is supposedly boring. We're still going from here 300 to under 200. I remember this one. Was it this one? I remember this. Or was it this one? I remember a day when it hit like 175. And we had highs of, around 300. So this was like 8 or 9 months of a boring period. I don't think this one's as long, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But keep in mind with crypto, Nothing is boring. Nevertheless, I'm gonna be predicting that we're around here. We're 60% off the highs. Okay? Now, let's look at Stellar. Stellar had 2 of these last year. Okay, this is the one in May. It was at about, and what's really interesting is that it was at 0 to 2. Let me show you that when I expand it. So first of all, you had the boring period, you went parabolic. I mean, look at that straight up move, and then came down, and we were in our quote unquote boring period here around 2 cents. And then IBM announcement, it was off to the races. And now, so let me just expand that out. So again, when you look at this, let's cut this down a little. This here, this is the boom we were just looking at. Look at how boring that looks. It looks very small. That's why you need a chart like this for the scale. So this was the first boom bust. And then here's the second one. And what's interesting, it was at 0.002. Then the next boring phase was 0.02. And guess what we're at today? 0.2. And, like I said, I got a feeling we're right around here. Now, but also, even if we know that we're around here, well, how long is this before we have the next boom? Big question. So one thing that I want to point out here is that Bitcoin, when it had its crash here, there was tremendous structural damage to the ecosystem, right? The biggest exchange, Mt. Gox, was the biggest exchange with 80% of the volume. It collapsed with a theft of a huge amount of money. And then there were arrests. And not just like now there's people, some ICOs and people are getting arrested. No, but back then, that was industry leaders who were being arrested. Also, one of the biggest apps shut down. One of the biggest uses at the time was this drug, illegal Silk Road website. So the industry itself was really hurt in a lot of ways. Whereas today, okay, first of all, exchanges, China tried to shut down exchanges. Guess what? They all just left China. No exchanges really, I don't know that anything really got shut down. Huobi? Oh boy, I can't remember the name of the Chinese exchange. That was one of the biggest. It still exists. Binance, I believe, was in China. Then they went to Japan. Now they're moving to Malta. So these Chinese exchanges, so there was no damage with exchanges. And then we just launched the Lightning Network, which is a huge structural improvement to Bitcoin. We have, and Wall Street banks are lining up. Like, I don't see structural damage, which makes me think that this downturn will not be as long as the last one. The last one was long and painful. Now, but keep in mind, so the point here, if anything, first of all, is you can't really predict. So you don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to pick one day, you put all your money in. I have videos you can watch. And again, I'm not a financial analyst, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Don't do your own research and all that. Giving you my advice. I'm 50 years old, made some money, been investing, been studying the crypto, giving you my advice. I like the dollar cost averaging. You can see my videos. I talk about you buy in over time. If you haven't gotten in at all, or let me just say this, the best time to get in is in the boring period, okay? And let me just tell you, it's not easy. Just because even if you know it's the boring period, it's still not easy. Let me show you my history, okay? Let me show you something. Show you my pain with Bitcoin, okay? First time I bought Bitcoin, I remember it was around 500. Let's just say it was here. I was probably, it was up here. It was at 700, and it fell to, 550. I probably thought I was a genius, and when I bought it on this day, 575. I don't know exactly, but something like here. And then guess what? It went lower. Oh boy. Wow, 400. Bought a little more. And this is months. I'm underwater. Then it goes down to 300. Buy a little more. Goes down again. I remember this day. This is the one. It hit 175. I think I was already all in by here. I have my average price around 350, so I don't know. But the bottom line is, and how long did this go on for? So let's say if I was all in by here, what is that? What date are we at here? I don't see where the date is. Oh, there. So December. And then it started coming out, so almost a year that I'm holding Bitcoin, buying it, and it keeps going. Every time I buy it, it goes lower, and then I'm holding it. I'm underwater for almost a year. But guess what? No tears. No tears in the long run. Stellar. Again, another sad story. Okay. Is this? No, we gotta move it. Stellar. I remember, and I'm embarrassed to say, I remember I bought it at like 4 cents. I was like, oh great, it's down. It was at 6. It came all the way down to here. Awesome. I bought a little, but I only bought a little, right? And then, a week later, it fell off a cliff here. Guess what? I bought more. And then guess what? It went down more. I bought some more. And then I held it for months with my position underwater. So even if I am right and we are here, doesn't mean this is going to be easy. Doesn't mean it doesn't go lower. Doesn't mean the fun doesn't begin until the parabolic move comes, right? So what did we talk about here? We talked about the structural. We talked about, did I talk about, okay, one more thing I noticed. I started digging into these. I noticed it was like, when does a boring period end? One thing I noticed is that you're in the boring, now, like I said, boring period is not that boring. You have some dramatic moves, can be 50% up and down, but I noticed on Stellar, and let's see if I think Stellar's a little easier to look at. So you see these, like there'll be a huge, this is sort of common when you leave the boring period, you have a huge move that comes most of the way back, and it's on much bigger volume. And that usually signals the party's about to begin. So FYI, I noticed that pattern also sort of recurring. So for prediction on how long, if in fact, so here we are, right? So if we're looking at this is Bitcoin current. So are we here? And then the question is how long. So I'm kind of saying that right here, I feel like we may be starting the boring phase, meaning that 6,500 is about the average. Keep in mind that if the boring phase is 6,500 is the average, it can touch 8, it can touch 5 or even lower. And sometimes these things, you go back in the chart. Remember I said, I remember Bitcoin hit 175 and you can't see it in the chart. Like sometimes it hits a price for 5 minutes and they talk about it in the news and everything. But it's like, who could buy at that moment? You have to be, it could hit a crazy low at 2 in the morning. You don't have a chance for that, right? So, but this is sort of, we're well off highs. 19, whatever. This blue line is market cap. We're looking at the green line. But anyways, now this boring time, this boring phase before, how long until the next parabolic move? That's the question. And if I'm going to guess, and anything is possible, and I always bet, not based on what I think is going to happen, based on that I'm going to be wrong, right? But I like, frame of reference is what I think. Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if 1 to 3 months from now, the next parabolic move begins. Because, like I said, structurally, we don't have problems. And there's money on the sidelines here. And generally, you know what I should have shown in my drawing here, actually. Shoot, I should have. So what generally happens, so it comes down, you have your boring phase, and then it starts coming up, and it starts to tick up, and once it gets close to the previous peak, then it goes really crazy. So within 1 to 3 months, we're going to start getting up over 12,000. And once it gets up over there, everyone's going to start to wake up, and that's when it starts to run. Another point too is Bitcoin has been the leader, and the trend has also been Bitcoin moves first, and then the second tier quality coins move next, and then maybe the smaller ones follow. Some shit coins will not participate in the next parabolic move. Some coins, now I made a video predicting some are going to zero. Well, you know, so the ones that go to zero come down, and then they just keep going down. They don't have another run up. But it's possible that some of these participate in the next parabolic move and then head on their way to zero. You know, my prediction of certain currencies going to zero is a 5-year outlook. They may participate in another parabolic move or two before the whole thing collapses. So, you know, just mentioning. So I can't remember exactly if I said everything or not, but so the point is, if you are not in this market at all and you're thinking about it, and if you're watching this video, clearly you are, now is the time to start coming in. We're all more than 60% off our highs. Now is the time to put a little in. And I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not trying to get people to go in. I don't care what you do. I'm giving advice. And it's this watch my videos on dollar cost averaging. If you're already in, now another point, I made one video talking about my advice to my mom, and it's a true thing. And she has somebody she was advising, and you know, I told them, hey, they had $3,000, do $300 a month for 10 months. I just sent him an email on April 1. I said, do your April buy now. And if it keeps going down, I would double down on your dollar cost averaging. You know, because although dollar cost averaging is you really want to buy every month, but honestly, I didn't buy anything in December. I mean, even November, December, I was laying low. And here we are, April, you could double down. So in other words, it was $300 a month for 10 months. Hey, if they do 600 in April, maybe 600 in May, or if it keeps going lower, now's the time you may want to increase your dollar cost averaging speed. You want it to go really slow when it's in the parabolic move, if anything at all. And then, you know, and one of the reasons when it's going down, you may say, well, why buy anything when it starts going down? Well, you don't know that it's this until you get here, right? Because through all of this, again, let's look. So let's do this. And let's do, oops, shoot. Can't get this thing to do what I want it to do. Shoot. Well, you know, when you were here, well, the bull is, I mean, I remember this one. Where was this? 4,700. I actually thought we rang the bell on the top here, you know, and it came all the way down to here. Well, you better sell now, you know, or don't buy anything here because we hit the top. Well, turns out it wasn't the top, right? And then here again, look, it looks like it's the top. This was 7,000. And then it came down. Well, it looks like it's over. And then it went even more. I mean, I guess now in hindsight, you could say that selling at here still would have been smart. Or even here, because it's come all the way back. But you just don't know. You never know. Okay? So it's all about, if you believe investing, you know, we got to get away from the whole thing trying to profit in trading. The idea is that in life is that you are trying to accumulate assets of value that you hold on to for a long time. Be it a house, stock, which is ownership and an investment, or in this case, a cryptocurrency that may become a store of value. You want to hold these things of value for a long time, and the idea is to accumulate, not to shuffle and trade and make profits. You want profits, start a business. We're accumulating assets, and when we buy, we hope to buy on down days. Or at this point, we're in a bit of a down period, and that is usually a good time to buy. Did I mention 60% off of the high is sort of a mark? It can go, I mean, it's gone 90% off highs. It can go to 80%. You can have a day where it's down more. Don't be so worried about buying the bottom. Like I said, I showed you what happened in my history, and I'm happy about it, right? Because I was buying, accumulating in these periods. And even though I did have 1 or 2 buys, it was maybe up in here, still, I'm doing okay. What is important is that you're investing in something that has another one of the parabolic moves, and that you don't do all of your buying up here. That is all. All right? Let me know your thoughts.